The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Back with Kurre here from Spy for Rent. I'm Tony Kurre. The show is called Spy for Rent. It's on every single day on the TKR app. Get the TKR app. We have our 100,000 followers on there. Of course, the show runs 5 days a week. And a lot of people will find it not only on our Tony Kurre page here, of course, on our YouTube page, so they get a chance to see Kurre with his glasses on and see my interesting looking mug, but also wherever you get your favorite podcast. We're available on every major podcast outform out there. So no matter where you're looking, look for Spy for Rent, Spy the number 4 Rent, or FORRent.com. And you'll see our show. I will say this, and I talked to Kurre just several minutes. He's a super busy man, and when you're busy, that's a good thing. That means we're doing a good job here. We're getting the word out. I mentioned you can't bullshit a bullshitter, and I mentioned before the show that I'm getting more people asking me about your show than probably any of the 18 or 19 shows that I do. And you're like, don't bull crap me, man. I'm like, no, seriously. I think it has a lot to do. And it was like that when we had Jeff Hammock on, who of course is your partner in crime, when we did Love, Lust, and Life, and we were on Talk 99.5 and did some things, and we built our own platform here. But I think it's titillating. I think it's exciting. I think it's everything from anytime you talk about cheating. January is National Divorce Month. I'm sure you're aware of that. And so it just kind of, I think the timing was perfect. I think it all kind of came to a head. And then if you want to go all the way to the extremes of, James Bond, you want to go to private investigators, you want to go to Rockford Files. It's just so many different things that work around. So I wanted to start off, and I have a tablet that I drive around the car in. And I'm constantly marking down things for your show as well as others. I do. And particularly for yours, because I'll be driving somewhere and I'll think, oh man, that would be a great question to ask Kurre. And then I'll pull up the side of the road. I did it on the way home today from my meeting. When you, and I've gotten a bunch of questions, some emails, info@tonykurreradio.net. I want to ask you too. First of all, I hope you're doing good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Tony.
I got a million, and this is obviously going to be the best year of our lives as we know it. I'm super excited about that. And a lot of it is because of the show Spy for Rent. When someone asks you what you do for a living, and I don't want to get your background. I don't know if you're married, kids, whatever. I don't ask for reasons that don't need to be known. But when someone says, so Kurre, tell me about yourself. What do you do for a living? What do you tell them?
It depends on the context. So if it's just me not on a job, then I usually tell people I work in security consulting.
Okay.
Because we do a lot of that too. But and that's actually what I started doing when I got out of the military, was started doing that more so than private investigations. But that if you go private investigations, people sometimes they don't know what to think. And security consulting people don't know what to think because, like you said, most people, why would I need a private investigator? They think Magnum PI, they think Rockford Files, they think Bosch. That's what they think, right? Yeah.
So when people find out who you are, and not to say that you're a PI or a spy, because spy just takes it to an all different level. You are Spy for Rent. You are a spy. You are in surveillance. That is a spy. But a private investigator and a spy, I wouldn't put them in the same boat. But although they do a lot of the same things, it's a lot like when you meet someone in law enforcement or a lawyer when you're at a mixer at a bar or something with a bunch of mixed people bring their dates, and you meet a police officer or you meet a lawyer or you meet someone like this in your line of business. People have a lot of questions because and they look at you a little differently. I can imagine, obviously because you have a certain amount of power that is over you. So how does that make you feel when you know that people know what you do for a living?
I mean, I don't get a big head about it. Some people, I think in my industry, if you're bragging about it or you think it's cool, then you're probably not too good at your job.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's a business. But I think what I think is funny is a lot of people think it's just, like a retired cop that doesn't, it's nothing special. Right. And if they really, get down and listen to our show or talk to me about it, how technical and how much training and how much money and equipment it takes to do investigations at the highest level, which we pride ourselves in doing and staying on the cutting edge, that, it's just kind of makes me smile a little bit on the inside that, somebody talk to you and be like, this guy, he's probably uneducated, whatever. And it's like, no, I've got a master's degree, but I don't tell him that. I just let him think whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Good. And that's the way it should be. And unless we've seen enough television shows to see old retired cops, all of a sudden take a case over. And next thing you know, they're there's a brand new Matlock. It's some what's her face. Kathy Bates is the woman who's in it when she's 70 years old. Next thing you know, she becomes some type of investigator, some type of PI or something like that. I mentioned at the top of the show, January is divorce month. I knew that. You knew that. Why is it, and how does that affect your business?
Yeah, so a lot of things shut down around the holidays the last 2 weeks. So the week of Christmas, New Year's. There's two reasons that the law firms, they're shut down. For the most part, everybody's visiting their families. And then two, nobody wants to, or not, some people do. So we do get stuff during the holidays, believe it or not. Either it was happening before, or sometimes it's last minute, and we were busy during the holidays. But most people don't want to start drama or controversy with family matters during the holidays. So a lot of the stuff we do too is less family law and more of some of the other aspects of what we're doing. A lot of corporate stuff, due diligence, who's attending this Christmas party, who are they meeting with, what contacts are this, it's, running tags, seeing who's doing these little offshoot meetings. Because a lot of these Christmas parties, and Tony, I know you're involved in a lot of them too. It's a business thing. Yep. So we get a lot more of that during the holidays. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, but you're slammed come, the day after New Year's, you're slammed. I mean, the law firms are slammed. Everybody, it's like, okay, presents are over. I don't have to see them. We don't have to go see the in-laws. It's time to serve some papers. Yeah,
and I mean it's a slower time of the year. There is a reassessment there. We see it all in business. I get it with my clients too. We sit down. That's why I try to get everything done in November, December to make sure that we hit the ground running on January. I don't have anything to say, hey, listen, I'm going to pull back a little bit, or I want to add something on, so we're good to go. And so, there's never a good time to get served divorce papers or the big D or whatever. But certainly around the holidays, and then you sprinkle in some children, which I'm assuming a lot of your cases have, and you certainly don't want the kids to have to go through that as well. There is a break in action a little bit, and it's unfortunate. Hopefully there's no extracurricular activities going on during that time, because that just muddies the waters for, what could be probably an amicable divorce. You spoke with me, his name's Kurre. We're not going to mention his last name, but you can certainly find out who he is if you go to spyforrent.com, spyforrent.com, spy the number 4rent or FOR.rent.com, 790-3051, 790-3051. I'm still amazed every time I go to your site. And by the way, you have a very easy site to navigate.
We're making a new one. We're making a new one.
It's really good. I can't wait to see your new one. But I'm floored by the amount of stuff you do, because I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, I mean, bug sweeps, GPS, surveillance, missing children. We talked about missing children last week. We had a divorce lawyer on a couple of weeks ago. A divorce attorney named Butts, was fantastic, and we're going to have more of those special guests on. You mentioned before the show today about defensive measures, and not specifically say Taekwondo, which, by the way, I know somebody that could get on to talk about Taekwondo, and Justin Scarcella, who's a master Taekwondo, but also a lot of, and we spoke about this a little bit in the show last week, in that what are some things that we can learn and help us so we don't get to a situation where we need a private investigator or have to do surveillance. And you brought up a couple of interesting things, not only other lawyers and how they look at cases, but some self-defensive measures. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really interesting, and that's thinking outside the box for you.
We do stuff like protective surveillance, so make sure somebody's okay, and it's in the background. So a lot of sometimes you want to be overt, and we're looking to go back and to expand some of our services to. It's not in the book. We're getting it back to where we're doing more EP stuff, executive protection. But we're not offering that right now. But and one of the things that you can do is it's covert surveillance is good if you don't want to have big flash and you don't need it, and it's just in the background. It's not a distraction for your principal, or just maybe you want to have a good night on the town, and it's not always these millionaires and billionaires that are hiring you for security stuff too, but also there's a time to have an overt presence as well as a deterrence. But one of the things you can do is just join a gym. That's what I was doing before we got on here. I was training with one of my best friends, Chris Mize, who owns Heroes Academy in Cahaba Heights and Trustful. He has a location as well. And that's just a confidence builder for your kids. One. So, and for yourself, it's something that, Tony, I'm still fairly young, but, I have friends that are 60s and they're still doing jujitsu with their children, and they grow together with it. So it's a confidence builder, and it's also, it makes you aware of how good are you. So, if you think that you are the biggest bad A in the world, and then you go to a jiu-jitsu gym or MMA gym, boxing gym, and you get your face pushed in, it kind of puts a little perspective that you might not open your mouth up as much as you would normally do. So, I mean,
this is not Officer and a Gentleman, is it?
Yeah. I mean, and Chris, so Chris specifically, so one of the things we're working on today, we're training more protective tactics for protection details, but also having that situational awareness. So if you're not worried about having to handle yourself, you can be more aware of your surroundings.
Which by the way, I've got to cut you off here because I'm going to forget. First of all, remind me to ask you about Fox 6. Bring that up before, and we can do that live here on our show. Fox 6. Remind me to say Fox 6 because I'll forget.
Okay.
Something that we need more of this in this country, and all we got to do is go back 10 days ago to New Orleans. We've got to be more cognizant of our surroundings. I know we say we are. Obviously, if you're at a church or a school, you let your guard down because you feel like it's a safe place. Hell, there's a sign outside the fire station that says safe place. You should be okay. But talk a little bit about those things. I go to the Galleria with my son every week, a single week. It's kind of we have a thing where me and him ride elevators and stuff. And there's a sign on the elevators that says, if you see something, say something. And of course, that has a lot to do with the shootings, the most recent shootings that were close to the Galleria, not near the Galleria, but then the ones that we had several years ago. And I think some people are like, oh, I'm being paranoid here. Just talk about how some things could be shut down, or perhaps we'd be better off as a society with those preventative measures of just knowing our surroundings, not so much a defensive standpoint.
Yeah. So training is one, and especially if you start at a young age with that. But so, for instance, I'm a professional people watcher. Everybody knows that. So 99% of people are not paying attention to anything. Now, there are some, especially if somebody gave somebody else a case and they screwed it up and then they want me to fix it. Mm-hmm. They might be paranoid, or they might have a reason to, but there's stuff. Craig Douglas, one of my good friends too, he trains 3-letter agencies around the world on stuff. He has a thing, it's called managing unknown contacts. And it's more of a verbal agility thing, and knowing how to position yourself naturally and speaking on your feet. If a homeless person comes up to you, it doesn't have to be super secret squirrel stuff. Just simple things like that. Pre-contact clues. So, if somebody's fidgeting, looking around, that's one. There's so many. If you can look at these things and you just know a little bit, not letting somebody get into your space. I've been guilty of that. You cannot stop a sucker punch if they're within punching range, because it's too fast and you're not going to be able to block. A lot of people want to do all this trapping stuff. No. So you've got to have that standoff. And really, like I said, if you're confident in your training, you're not looking in your cell phone. I think we've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have a plan. You're not going to a bad, crime area at the wrong time of day. And you plan your routes right. You don't have to be paranoid about things. And I don't want people to be paranoid, because you got to live life. I love martial arts. A lot of people don't. So you don't have to live the martial arts life, be in the gym 5 days a week to be able to protect yourself. You just got to know a little bit and be out of your phone. That's the biggest thing. I mean, that's safety from driving. There's more fatalities from texting probably than anything. That's everything. Having earbuds in. Mm-hmm. I gave all the women in my family earbuds, Bluetooth earbuds, but I did not give them noise canceling. Okay. So they can still hear stuff, but if they're on the phone, they're not looking at their cell phone. They're not, because they got the purse in one hand, maybe a kid.
Yeah.
You got to think of where you park, but there's a lot of things, and we could do multiple segments on that, Tony. And I know probably the three biggest experts in the United States, if not the world, on that are in my cell phone. So if that's something that they want, then we can bring them on.
My wrist is getting tired by writing down all these notes, distractions. And I just remembered, I wanted to mention JJ Pruitt, who's a good friend of mine from Fox 6. I do several segments with them on Mondays and Thursdays. We do the Curry and Claypo thing, and then I do a music Monday. But I'd love to get you on along with Chris.
I've been on JJ before when I was in high school.
Good. Well, I can get you on that segment anytime I want. So I'd love to get you on along with your buddy Chris on to certainly talk about his business and everything else. So remind me, and we'll talk about that shortly after the show. No, I mean, distractions. I mean, we've seen so many videos of people looking down their phone. They walk right into fountains, or they walk right into traffic. They do everything else. And it's just amazing, because now more than ever, we do need to be not paranoid, but we need to be aware of our surroundings. And, I'm telling you right now, when you have children, all of a sudden, if it's your own life, it's fine. You're fine. You can walk in the middle of the woods, do whatever you want. But when you've got children, you're holding on to your kids' hands, and you're at a busy parking lot, or you're at a mall, or you're anywhere. It doesn't at church. It doesn't matter. I'm constantly on surveillance, and it's not an anxiety thing. It's not like, are you okay? It's not exhausting. It's just my cognizance of just knowing, looking around peripherally speaking, I can see a lot more now than I've ever seen in my life. And by the way, you mentioned self-defense. My son is a black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay.
And he started taking that. And one of the reasons we did that was because we made him do some type of sport. He didn't want to do an organized sport. So he wanted to do something like that. He did it with Master Scarcella, which was fantastic. And it just changed his life. It changed his life. I don't know if he'll ever use his form or use Taekwondo in his life. It's purely defensive. It's never an offensive situation. And they will tell you that. But to know that he's got that in his back pocket is a wonderful thing. But more than anything, it's just the confidence that it instilled in him to know, hey, listen, I can do this and I can protect myself. And he stands straighter. His chest is out further. I mean, he gained 2 inches just by standing up straighter when he was going through that. So I applaud your efforts on that. It's great. And let's get Chris on the show. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net, info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Got a million different things I want to go here. And we can certainly make shows out of all of these. But I'm driving, pulling off the side of the road, writing things down, getting back on, and then I'm going to show what I've got to you. And what were your thoughts on Mayor Woodfin's new project as far as in trying to make our city safer? I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about there. It was a 70-page report that came out a couple of weeks ago. We had 149 homicides in the state, the worst by far. Overall, our crime is down. Our homicides are up. Have you gotten a chance to hear anything about that? Is that something that interests you at all? Have you been asked about that at all?
I haven't been asked about it. I know some people some recent hires that they've made. My cousin, and I don't want to get into specifics, is pretty high level in some law enforcement.
Yeah.
So recently the city's hired some contacts that he told me were very, very good and high levels of the Birmingham police. So that's one thing, the recruitment, getting the right people in with the right experience. We're talking former federal law enforcement. And, sometimes you've got to have a mix of both because, and like I said, my law enforcement experience is minimal compared to a lot of people that I know, but that's the people I hang out with. That's the people I train with. We have multiple people that, on our team that have even more experience in law enforcement specifically than me. But I think the recruiting efforts that they're trying to do is the way that they're trying to recruit the right people. So I think that really is what gets down to the bottom of it, and having a more of a presence in Birmingham and getting those people back up. But, it's got to be a hard task. I mean, any city, you're balancing a budget, they've got a lot of things on their plate, not just that, but, economic developments that they're trying to do, et cetera. So it's very hard to get that recruitment up and still keep those other efforts at a high level as well. So I applaud the efforts that they're trying to do. I haven't read the whole thing, but I think they're trying, and that's more than what some people can say.
Yeah, no doubt. Spy for Rent. That's the name of the show. Spy, the number 4rent.com is the website. It's being redone, but it's a fantastic website, easy to navigate. His name is Kurre. Of course, he's with the organization along with Jeff, our good friend from Love, Lust, and Life. And we'll certainly get into some stories as we go. We just started the show several months ago, and it's been fantastic. I've gotten more interest in this show probably in any show I've done on TKR, which is wonderful because we're getting just a plethora of different insights and different ways to look. And we'll have special guests on the show, as we already have over the last couple of months. We'll do that throughout the tenure of the show as well. Something Jeff used to always talk about, and I wrote this down. I meant to ask you about it last week. He actually has a group of wealthy women who ask him to do private investigative work on prospective dates before they actually go out with these guys. And I think this is really interesting because, I guess if I was a millionaire and I needed to be protected and I need to know who's going out, and obviously people know who these women are, how prevalent is that? Does that happen a lot? And I'm assuming, I'm always thinking about gold diggers as guys being the ones being dug on, not the women. But does that happen a lot?
Yeah, it happens. And, of course, wealthier people have somewhat more to lose depending on how you look at it. But at the same time, just regular people like us, heck, they've got a lot to lose. I've had horror stories about people that did not do their due diligence, and they have been scammed out of millions of dollars.
Wow.
I'm not even lying, locally, because they didn't look up, they didn't do a background check on the person, and a simple Google search on this person could have found out, their scammer, been on the news in other states for being scammers. So I think it's important for any loved one. Now, you've got to be careful. There's certain laws around what all you can actually access for a background check. Just like if you go to a new job, you're gonna fill out a form that says, am I allowed to look at this, this, that, and the third, right? So there's some certain nuance to that, and usually I like to do background checks through an employer and or an attorney, but we'll do just like we would a due diligence investigation. Just like if you're going to do a merger or acquisition, you look up the company. If you're going to buy the company, you're going to look up the officers. Sure. You're going to hire somebody. So, and the more that's on the line, the more budget you might have. You might want to just because somebody on paper hasn't been arrested or et cetera, or, doesn't mean they're necessarily a good person. So some people, we'll follow them to see what they're doing. Or, do they really have this job that they say they have? It's just weird that they're always available. You know what I'm saying? And then, I've had women that I've dated tell me about people, even in business, that have, we want you to work for us, blah, blah, blah. Ends up that they've scammed dozens of women out of money saying, the government seized my funds. As soon as it's out, I'll pay you back the $20,000. And they've done it. And that's what they make their living off doing. So if I was any loved one that I had, I would recommend at least doing a little bit of due diligence on them.
And that, it's so funny because we hear these stories. It's almost like the cult stories. I hear these cult stories. I'm like, how in the world could you have fallen for this? And I guess, when you're a sheep, you're looking for a leader, right? And there are a lot of sheep out there, a lot of people that aren't meant to be leaders. And everyone wants to be part of something bigger. And that's why cults work. In this particular case, when you got somebody in particular, a love interest, and that muddies the waters a whole lot because you certainly want to make the person you're with happy. And if you have the financial fortitude to help that person, well, I didn't want to, and I'm assuming it's normally 2 or 3 months in, you just kind of drop it. Yeah, I'm having some problems with my taxes, blah, blah, blah. It's not something where they're going to sit down after the first date and go, listen, I need $20,000. But these guys are really good at what they do. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people get taken for it. And they'll play the whole boyfriend thing. They'll play the whole card, man. They'll play it all the way out until they know it. And next thing you know, they're gone.
Or people married in different states or having a family, ways away. I've, close friends, I've seen that. And now it happened a lot more before social media.
Yeah.
But, there's plenty of people that, they have a family in another town, state, whatever. And they're going on a business trip and then ends up they're going to their other family,
There was a story on Dateline several months ago, and I know Dateline's been on for like 30 years. I just found the show. I've never watched Dateline until just recently. And yeah, it's pretty good. But it was about this guy who was married to 3 different women, had 3 different lives going on, told all of them that he worked for the government, had all kinds of badges and stuff. I don't know, you may even know the story, and had badges made for each one of them. He was in surveillance doing stuff in Dubai. And of course, because he was a private investigator or spy in your neck of the woods, could not tell any information about anything he was doing, was leaving in the middle of the night, doing these things, flying all over the country. And I mean, it was just like, how in the world could you not see that? And I mean, it was just one of those things where, you finally get called out. It's like, and these women were married to this guy. I mean, it was just, it was crazy. It was wild. A good friend of mine, Josh Claypo, who does our show, he wanted me to ask you, what should you do if you know you're being surveillanced? That's an interesting question. Sometimes I've done this show enough with you enough. I remember doing stuff with Jeff and Love, Lust, and Life, and people knew we were in partnership with each other. I've used your services for some things. So I figure that if I've used your services, perhaps some services have been used on me. And sometimes I feel like there's some heavy eyes on me. What should you do if you feel like someone is surveilling you?
So some basic things you can do is you can do what's called a surveillance detection route. If you believe the surveillance, there's different types of surveillance, right? Is it technical? Are you getting recorded? Is that what you're afraid of? Mobile surveillance, where somebody's actually going out and following you. There's certain things you can do. Maybe not go to the same route, use the same route every day. That's something that's just basic, like use different routes. And like I said, you can if you got to the point where you're having to use different routes and plan different times a day to leaving, which is what you would do, then you need to probably call somebody like us to do counter surveillance. So we do a lot of counter surveillance. Like we're talking about protection details. If you have the money, they'll hire people like us to do counter surveillance and make sure that nobody else is following that principle. But, everyday life, that could be going in a square, right? Mm-hmm. There's ways around all this stuff too, like little tricks we can do, to get around that. It usually requires multiple people, but that's the biggest thing. If you're noticing the same thing over and over and it's out of place and your little spidey sense is tingling, I would start doing that. But if you got really scared about it, ask a professional. And there's things too, like, do you have a Ring camera? Is the same car going by your house multiple times? And like I said, if they're good at surveillance, there's ways around all this stuff. I mean, there's jammers where, it's Wi-Fi based. So, I mean, there's jammers and whatnot. How smart are these people? Are they going to do stuff legally? Usually people that are stalking you aren't going to do it legally, right? So they don't care. And we do a lot of counter surveillance for stalking cases. Unfortunately, stalking is a huge issue. A lot of, bad boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, harassing communications, phones, technical surveillance phones, just little simple drop devices. It costs very little money to go on Amazon and buy something to bug somebody. Yeah. That is a good device, but it costs a lot and have in training and equipment to do a good sweep. And a lot of people will try to go buy some little RF detector off Amazon, which, yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can use some of that stuff, but it's not, it'll pick up a lot of things. And if, you can put up the RF detector to the window and signals are just bouncing, or it could just be, you got your neighbors, you got FM radio, you got Bluetooth devices going. So it's hard to narrow it down unless you have specific equipment. But like I said, I'd hire a professional. But if you're scared at the moment, like really scared, I'd call the police, and I would get to like if somebody's following you and they're aggressive and for now, you don't want to just call for, if this is not being paranoid, but just like somebody is tailgating you there, you call the police and you don't stop anywhere that's not populated, and people are bold now. Criminals are bold. They'll do stuff in broad daylight. So I would recommend calling the police, letting them know. It might take them a while to get to your area, but hey, my name's Corey. I'm in a blah, 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 whatever your vehicle is. I'm traveling south on 65 past an exit, blah, blah, blah. I've got a white Nissan Frontier that's tailgating me. Let the police do it. But if it's a prolonged thing, you probably need a professional to help you out and keep you safe.
All right.
That's from consulting for your home security to actually catching them as well. So, just keeping yourself safe.
Got a million different show topics just off of today. I want to certainly talk about the distractionary things. You mentioned stalking, which I think would be a really interesting show. I'll get you on Fox 6 along with your friend, because I think anytime we can do some preventative defensive measures, I think that's a wonderful thing. So let's talk about that after the show. And you're going to have a plethora of, it already started working. You had a defense attorney on our show a couple of weeks ago, and it ended up being a very interesting show in that I actually found out some information about myself while we were doing the show. Like, what are the chances? But it was beneficial that at least I had a heads up on that situation. So I thank you. You did work for me and you didn't even know it, which is pretty amazing stuff. So we greatly appreciate it. 790-3051, 790-3051, Spy for Rent, Spy for the number 4rent.com or forrent.com. Check it out. Corey, thank you so much. Until next week, we'll get after it. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Send those email questions. We'll get to it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.